All right, good evening, everyone. Tonight we have with us Dr. Kathryn Ladano, who is known both locally and nationally as a professional musician and bass clarinetist.
Clarinetist.
Thank you. An artistic director for Kitchener-Waterloo based music presenter producer, NUMUS, and as an academic professor of music at Wilfrid Laurier University. In September 2020, her life changed dramatically when she was rear-ended at a Toronto intersection. While the damage to her car appeared non-existent, the accident caused a concussion, which later developed into post-concussion syndrome and a persistent neck injury. As a survivor of several other minor concussions and head injuries, this is the most recent injury and one that she still hasn't recovered from. In her survivor story, Kathryn will talk about the process of regaining the ability to play music and the various lifestyle changes she's made to help in her recovery process. So welcome, Kathryn.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, and thank you everyone for coming tonight to check this out. So as you already heard a little bit about me, my name is Kathryn Ladano, and I'm an artist, but I wear a lot of different hats. So my professional life is kind of complicated, a little bit all over the place. So so the one part is that, yes, I am a professional musician. I play bass clarinet, and some of the difficulties that I've had with that is one of the things I'm going to be focusing on tonight. I'm also a university professor, so I teach in the Faculty of Music at Wilfrid Laurier University. Specifically, I focus on improvisation there, and I'm also the artistic director for NUMUS, which is the concert presenter and producer in town. It's been around for over 35 years now. And then the other thing that wasn't mentioned is I also have a little part-time gig as a grant writer, and I write grants for Hospice Wellington in Guelph. And I know that sounds like a lot of work that I do, but it's all contract, it's all part-time. And throughout the majority of the pandemic, I was doing most of that from home, which created a very different work environment for me than I think is the norm for most people. I wanted to start by talking a little bit about my accident and how all of this happened. So as you already heard, my concussion came as a result of a motor vehicle accident that happened in early September 2020 in Toronto. I don't live in Toronto, so I was in a different city. And basically what happened was I was stopped at a stoplight. I was going to be turning left onto Bloor Street. And as I was waiting for the light to turn, impact. So I just felt what felt like a really significant impact. And I looked in the rearview mirror, and there was a car right there that had clearly hit me. It was, as was stated, it was a very minor accident. So I got out of the car, and the person that hit me, his car was still touching mine. But there was no visible damage. Someone was with me in the car at the time, and that person is fine and didn't have any effects whatsoever. Now, I think one of the reasons why I was affected a little more significantly is, well, twofold. One is that I know that I've had at least 2 concussions in the past, as well as some other head injuries that I don't think were necessarily concussions. So I do think it was likely cumulative. But in addition to that, I remember when this happened, when I was at that intersection in Toronto, I remember leaning forward quite a bit and kind of looking to my left and like looking to see if the traffic was coming. And that's the last thing I remember. So I think that's why it was also more severe for me than the other person in the car, because I think with my leaning forward and being turned to the side, it kind of just snapped my neck back. And as a result of that, I have an ongoing neck injury and problems on my neck, and they're almost exclusively on the right side of my neck, which I think makes sense with my head being turned. So when the accident happened, it was very odd, unlike anything I've experienced before. And I really wasn't sure what to do. As I said, I got out of the car, I checked the damage, and the person that hit me would not engage with me whatsoever. So he would not put his window down. He would not get out of his car. He would not speak to me. I was at least able to, I asked him through the closed window if he would please reverse his car so that I could see if he had left any damage. And all that was obvious to me was that my license plate was bent. But there was no damage, and this person would not engage with me whatsoever. And again, I was not in my home city. And I realize now that I probably wasn't thinking straight at all. So I really had no idea what to do. And what I decided to do is, I want to go home. This is ridiculous. I'm fine. My car is fine. Everything's fine. Let's just go home. So I did make sure to get a photograph of the vehicle. So I turned off to the side of the road, and the person that was in the car with me, I asked him to get his camera ready and to take a picture. So I do have a picture of the car and the license plate that hit me, but that was it. After driving for a very short time, I realized that I was not okay, and that I wouldn't be able to drive home. So I had to pull off the highway and switch and get the person that was in the car with me to drive home. And I just started feeling progressively worse and worse after that. So in the following days, I knew there was a problem. I knew there was a serious problem the next morning because I couldn't get out of bed. It was a fatigue that I don't think I've ever experienced in my life, even with the worst colds and flus. It was nothing like that. So I knew something was seriously wrong because I wasn't sick. So why else would I feel that tired? I also had a lot of head pain, and no matter how much Tylenol or Advil I took, nothing worked. Nothing would take the pain away. I also realized very quickly that I couldn't tolerate light. I couldn't tolerate sound, and looking at a screen or a television was really, really difficult, and it made my head feel so much worse. I also experienced pretty significant brain fog at the time. I couldn't think straight, but I'd never experienced brain fog anymore. So I didn't know how to explain that to anyone or how to articulate what that is when you can't think straight and you can't speak properly and you can't see things properly or hear things properly. So that night, this was the accident happened on a Saturday. This was a Sunday when I realized there was a problem. And so that evening, I called Ontario Telehealth and talked to them for a while. And they strongly encouraged me to immediately go to emergency. And I did not, because it was so hard to just get off the couch. I couldn't imagine getting into a car, driving to an emergency and waiting for who knows how long. So I did not go. But I did call the doctor, my doctor, the next morning, and she diagnosed me with a concussion. She told me to just rest and stay away from screens, and that all would be well in 2 weeks' time. So I waited the 2 weeks, and nothing changed, and it didn't go away. So I basically knew at that time that this was an injury that was going to be quite different from anything that I had experienced before. But I was still thinking very much in short term that, okay, like I didn't get over it in 3 weeks, but I'll get over it in a month, or I'll get over it in 2 months, like 3 months at the most. By Christmas, I'll be fine. But I was proven wrong pretty quickly. So I realized, as I said quickly, that things weren't going to change significantly in 2 weeks, or even at all in 2 weeks. So this led to some problems because screen time was an issue. And I was told to avoid screen time, but this was the beginning of September, and I was starting to teach the week after. And I don't know if any of you remember, but throughout the 2020-2021 school year, all learning, at least at the post-secondary level, was remote. So I couldn't avoid screen time. I had to do it. And So some of you might be asking, like, why did you try to do it? Why on earth would you try to push through that and do it? And ultimately, as I said at the start of my talk, all of my positions are contract. They're all part-time, which is great for me because I have so much flexibility in my life. And it leads to a good lifestyle for me, where I can balance a lot of different things and and not have that regular 9 to 5 work schedule. But the downside that comes with it is no job security. And my primary source of income at that time, and currently, it was the teaching at Wilfrid Laurier University. That's where half of my income comes from. And being contract faculty, not having any benefits at the time, and not having any job security, as I said, I was terrified of losing my job, because anyone that is familiar with academia knows that those jobs are really hard to get. It's really hard to get into the university system, and it took me years. It took me over a decade to kind of build the course portfolio that I wanted, and that was right down my alley and met up with my expertise. So the thought of, potentially taking a leave, having someone else come in and take my courses, and not really having anything to fall back on was too much for me. So it was probably not the wise decision. I think my recovery probably would have been smoother and easier and maybe even shorter if I didn't push through, but I did. And it was very, very hard. However, the fact that I was teaching classes online, even though the screen time was hard, I found ways to make it work for me. So, for example, I didn't have to travel anywhere. So I could be napping, up to 10 minutes before I had to teach a course, and I could make that work. And the second a class was done, I could go crash and fall asleep. And these are things you can't do with a regular job. The screen time was hard, but I dealt with that by putting different filters on my screen, and also getting the habit of not staring at the screen the whole time, and kind of like looking away. And sometimes I would even have my screen covered or partially covered. And because of that, I was able to get through. Had we not been in a pandemic, and had I not been able to teach remotely, there's no way I could have done it. There's no way. And I honestly don't know what would have happened in that case. The part of my professional career that I think was affected the most, because there wasn't really a workaround for it, was performing. So I discovered that I was completely intolerant to playing my instrument. And for those of you that don't know, the bass clarinet, it's part of the woodwind family. So it's a very large instrument. It's a very low instrument, which means that it takes a lot of air, and it takes a lot of air support. And if you're blowing into an instrument, that's all in your head area. So you've got a mouthpiece in your mouth with a reed that's vibrating literally in your head. And I couldn't handle it. And I tried to get into performing. And I found that I tried to work up to 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, I would pass out on the couch, and my head would be in excruciating pain, and I couldn't handle it. Now, things have gotten better, and I have kind of built up from there, but that was kind of where I was starting from. And thankfully, at that time, I didn't know how long the recovery was going to take, because I think that I probably would have completely lost it if I had known at that time that you're going to struggle with this for some time, and your recovery is going to be more than just a couple months. But sometimes ignorance is bliss. And I think in my case, it was probably a good thing. So the other thing that changed in that first month was I started going to physiotherapy. So when it was clear that I wasn't getting better, a few people, I didn't even know about this, but a few people had told me, like, hey, it was a vehicle accident, so your car insurance, you're entitled to benefits, they'll pay for them. So I reached out to my insurance broker reached out to me, because he had heard that this had happened to me. And he was really, really wonderful. And he got me set up with with physiotherapy right away. So I started about a month after my accident. Unfortunately, I had to do, at that time, I had to do therapy through the place that my insurance company told me to go to. And I didn't know any different. And I regret that because I don't think I got great treatment. The place that insurance sent me to, I did go there very often. I went twice a week for about 5 to 6 months, which is a huge time commitment for me. And but the problem was that when the funding ended, they just told me to stop going. So I was not better, and I never got discharged, and there was more that I was supposed to do. But I was just told, like, oh, well, you know, your coverage, which was $3,500, you've used it all, so you're done now. And then I was thinking, okay, that's great. So what happens now? Like if I need more? So at that point, we're roughly like 5 or 6 months along, and it was clear that I was still going to need more help than that. So some of the things, I did get into some other therapies later, and I'm back in physiotherapy now, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want to get back to the whole performance thing, because as I said, that's going to be kind of a big focus of this talk, and one of the struggles that I have gone through. So when the accident happened, again, thankfully it was the pandemic, so it's not like there was a ton of work out there for musicians. But I did have a couple little things, and I just canceled them and said I couldn't do them. But I got a really interesting opportunity from a friend and colleague out west reached out to me and said that there was this like really cool project happening in Kelowna, and I didn't have to go there. And all I had to do was submit 3 separate 3-minute recordings, and then that would be mixed and edited and put together into this larger project. And the pay was very, very good. So this was a couple months into the recovery, and I decided that I would use this as kind of my opportunity to finally start working a little more seriously towards playing. And I did do it. I had to do the 3. Normally, if I were to do it today, I would probably do the 3 recordings back to back, because I can do that. But at the time, a 3-minute recording that's enough. I need to put the instrument down now. And so I did them all separately. I did them on different days. Sometimes I did them a week or 2 apart to give me lots of time to recover. And it worked. I think I think those recordings were some of my worst work ever, because I can hear in them that I'm very weak. It sounds like I have no air support. That my tone seems very weak to me, but they loved it and they didn't know, and I got paid for it. So that gave me a little bit of confidence, and made me think that, okay, you know, I can start here. I can start with a 3-minute recording, and you know, as long as the opportunities are short, like, I think I can do this. So then about 4 months after my injury, another opportunity came along from my friend Frank Horvat, who I see is actually here tonight, which is really cool. And Frank is a Toronto-based composer, and he and I have collaborated a lot. He's written some music for me. I've performed on a number of his albums. And he reached out and asked if I would perform on another album. This one was being recorded at Roy Thompson Hall, which was really exciting to me, because I'd never been there, and to even just be on that stage was super amazing. And I think, if I remember correctly, I think I initially said no. And then Frank gave me a little bit more information, and I realized that the piece he wanted me to record was only about 5 minutes long, and I'd recorded it before I knew the music. So and it wasn't that hard. So it wasn't anything that was going to be like too difficult for me to take on. So I decided I would do it, and I kind of viewed that then as like my first really significant stepping stone. So I worked really hard in the month or 2 leading up to that performance. I got the instrument out every day, and 3 minutes turned into 5 minutes, which turned into 7 minutes to 10. And then eventually, I think by the time we recorded, I was kind of hovering about 30 minutes, which was actually really, doesn't seem like much in my, for a normal professional, but at that time that was huge for me. So I did it. Obviously could not drive to Toronto. I had to get a ride there and back, but I did the recording. It took about 15 to 20 minutes. It was within my ability. I think we recorded it in 2 takes, if I remember correctly. And Frank was well aware of my injury and well aware of the fact that he couldn't ask me to, keep re-recording it. And the schedule was very restricted that day anyway, which again worked in my favor. But that gave me a huge confidence boost and made me realize, like, hey, like this is coming back. I can do this, but I just have to work differently than I ever have before. And it's going to take me a lot longer to prepare. And, for now, I just have to focus on things that are, not a full length concert. However, that concert experience gave me, I think, false confidence in my recovery and my ability. Because once I did that, I thought, okay, I just need more time. If I just have more time, like I can do a full length concert, no problem. So I made the decision to record a full length concert. I don't remember how much it was or how long it was. I think it was probably about 45 minutes or so, solo concert for NUMUS. And I learned all the music. I was prepared. I did the recording. But in retrospect, that was a huge mistake and I wasn't ready for it. The recording is good. I'm happy with it. I don't think it's my best work, but it's okay. And it unfortunately resulted in a huge setback for me. So I was so proud of being able to do this. And I thought it was my first sign, like I'm better, like doesn't matter. I can do all these performances. It's all good. And if I remember correctly, it was about 2 full months where I felt awful every single day. And I mean, awful, well beyond what is normal for me. So one of the things that I realized is this whole neck thing on my right side that I tend to ignore. And when I perform, I know now that it really makes the neck injury a lot worse. I get so much tension. The muscles like pull down on my cranium, and I get all kinds of different problems. So I know now that I still should not be doing that type of thing, like a solo full-length recital. And I also have learned that I need to have massage therapy as soon after any kind of performance as possible, because it really does take its toll on my body. And at this time, I hadn't realized that yet. But after the 2 months of awfulness, I finally decided to see a massage therapist and see if they could help me. And they were able to help me. And it started me on a road of recovery to kind of make that better. But it was unfortunately a difficult learning experience. So then last summer, things kind of were stabilized for me, I would say, because I don't teach in the summer months. So I'm not teaching right now. I only have to do that basically from September to the end of November, and then again from January to the end of March. So it's also kind of nice because I get a nice big break from teaching. And once again, last summer, because I wasn't teaching and I did do a couple performances and they were manageable. But I think I had once again kind of overestimated where I was in my recovery. So what happened last September was I had to start a new term, except this time I had to do it in person. So we were further along in the pandemic and in-person teaching started. And that was yet another complete shock to my system. And again, I knew it was going to be difficult, but I didn't foresee it being anything like it was. So I experienced another massive setback in September of 2021, which was about a year after my accident. And after the very first day, my very first day teaching a class, I went into the classroom and I didn't even teach a class. I went over the syllabus, talked about the class, introduced myself and answered questions. It probably took all of 20 or 25 minutes. But I came home and my symptoms were through the roof. And I knew right away that, oh, shoot, like this is day one. I didn't even teach a full class. Like I am screwed. I don't know what I'm going to do. So basically every single day was a huge challenge for me. And it was to the point that I could only teach a class and do nothing else. And also keep in mind when I talk about teaching, my schedule was basically one class a day. So we're talking roughly an hour and a half a day of teaching class and then going home. I had asked for accommodations at work, and I was hardly given any of them. So the one accommodation they did give me was access to a quote unquote quiet room where I could go, before class and between classes, or take a break in class and kind of go there and just have no sensory information and just decompress and feel better. But when I went to campus and saw the quiet room, I was very dismayed to find that it was a room covered in windows, with no comfortable seating whatsoever. And it was basically a storage closet with, as I said, like windows along the one side. So even if you wanted to be in a dark space, it was impossible because the hall light was going to come through. So that was a point where I kind of realized, like, okay, work is not gonna meet me halfway here, and they're not gonna help me. So I need to figure this out. So at this point was when I realized that I really need some more help, and I really need some more support. So I got back in touch with my insurance company, explained the situation, said that, my symptoms were continuing. In fact, they'd gotten worse, significantly worse, to the point that it felt like I was right back to where I started. It was like any progress I made in that year was just gone. It was erased. And my insurance was not very helpful, as I'm sure no one is surprised at hearing. And they said, well, you were in the minor accident category. You got $3,500 and you used $3,500. So goodbye. Too bad. So then I started doing some other things. And it was at this point that I started seeking out other treatments as well, which I was paying out of pocket for. So I started doing massage treatments instead of just when things were really bad, or just after I practiced too hard or played a show or whatever. I started going regularly every 2 to 3 weeks. And I found that incredibly helpful with my neck and shoulders. But my massage therapist, who's a really, really wonderful woman named Rhonda Marie Park, she also does cranial sacral therapy. And so I basically get half of the session massage and half of the session cranial. And it's incredible how much that helped me. It really made a huge difference. At this time, I also started seeing an osteopath regularly, and I'm continuing with both of those things, and that really helped me significantly as well. Massage, cranial, and osteo, those three were really huge. But I knew that I really needed to go back to physiotherapy as well. So insurance wasn't getting me anywhere, so I had to basically seek out legal actions and see what would happen. And I found, I contacted what felt like a million lawyers, and no one would help me because there's just not, at least I suspect the reason is that there's not a lot of money in a case like that, where you're just trying to get back into the insurance system. So one of the lawyers had recommended that I contact a paralegal to help me with that instead. And I, again, went through a bunch of them because none of them wanted to help me either. But I did find a really, really wonderful, incredible a paralegal named Joel Lewis, who's based in Toronto. And within a very short time of me retaining his services, he managed to get my insurance company to switch me from the minor accident category to the major accident category. He arranged for me to go back and get back into physiotherapy with insurance paying. And also he ensured that I was able to go to the physiotherapist place of my choice, which was also really huge to me. So that was working really, really great. But the update on that is that they cut me off again after my physiotherapist submitted a subsequent treatment plan. So I'm in another battle with them, and kind of in limbo there. And it's really unfortunate, but from what I hear, it's so incredibly common. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But the other treatment that I started being physiotherapy with a physiotherapist of my choice, which is VOR Physiotherapy in Waterloo, again, really started making a huge difference for me. And so I'm going to be continuing that no matter what. I wanted to briefly touch on some significant life changes that have happened as a result of my injury. So by all definitions, my injury would be considered minor. Certainly most of the people I've talked with that have concussions or post-concussion syndrome were in more significantly worse accidents than me, with more long-lasting effects and worse effects for me. But the thing that I struggle with is that even though my injury is considered minor, the impact that it has had on my life has been very major. Like there's been nothing else like it. So I really don't like calling it a minor injury because of the impact it's had on me. So one of the significant life changes is I'm now adapting and I'm getting used to it. So it's not this way so much anymore, but certainly in the fall, it just felt like I was living to work. That was it. I needed all the energy that I could to get through my one and a half hour class in the day, go home, rest, get ready for the next day. So it felt like I had to cut everything out. There was nothing fun in my life at that point, certainly, because I had to conserve so much energy. Another significant life change is I've had to give up alcohol, which anyone that knows me knows that pre-injury, I was a huge craft beer fan, huge fan of that. And to give up one of the things that I loved was really hard initially, but I have to say now I don't, it's fine, because there are a number of really wonderful non-alcoholic craft beers out there, and I am now enjoying that world as well as craft soda. So I've found a replacement. Don't feel like I'm missing out too much. As I said, I've had to cut back on performing. So I'm at the point in my career where I get offered work. I don't have to seek it out too much, but right before, or a short time before my injury, I had actually just released a new album, a solo album. And my plan was that right now I would be promoting it and I would be touring it and I would be doing something with it. And I can't. So it's there, it's out there. But I'm no longer promoting myself as a solo musician. I take opportunities that are offered to me if it meets my criteria. But that's it. And I'm not back there yet, but I'm working on it. My social life was obviously quite significantly impacted, and it became non-existent, in part because I couldn't tolerate being out in public anywhere. So being in a restaurant or on a patio, I start getting symptomatic quite quickly. So that's really hard for me. But also socializing is just really hard. It's very taxing on me and it drains my energy. And I'm already an introvert. And since my injury, it drains my energy so much more. So I have to be very aware of my limits. And I've realized now that the social piece is very important for my mental health. So again, I have to work with my limitations and not cut it out completely, but, find a way to make it work. Even if it means that all my friends have to come to me and hang out at my house, it makes it easier for me. Also, I was affected as an artistic director because I spent a lot of time, and the organization spent a lot of money programming concerts and programming artists, and I couldn't go see them for a while. So I'm pleased to say that I started the ability to be able to go to concerts again at the end of March. I went to my first one, And I was able to tolerate that with earplugs and just really limiting my stay in the concert. Movies, I was not able to do either, but again, I went to my first movie a few weeks ago, and that went okay. So I see that as a big win. And then probably the change that affected me the most was battling with depression and mental health. And I think that it's very easy for people experiencing an injury like this to get the feeling that you're never going to get better. This is your life forever now. Like it's taken a year and a half. So why wouldn't it take the rest of my life? And obviously that's very damaging thinking, and it's really, really hard to get out of it. And when you can't socialize and you can't go and do the things that you used to do and you love to do, you get very isolated, and it's very, very easy for those feelings of depression to seep in. And when they do, your recovery is impossible. And I've realized now the importance of mental health. I have, in the middle of my injury, I'm not afraid to say that I got a counselor, a really good one, and she's worked with me a lot on this, and my mental health, and I think my mindset is much, much better. That's not to say that I don't seek into that darkness, or it doesn't seep in still. It still does, but it doesn't happen as often, and I'm better equipped to deal with it. Another big change in my recovery was I lost a serious relationship in the middle of my recovery as well. It was a relationship that I realize now was causing me a great deal of stress and was getting in the way of my recovery, but I didn't realize it at the time. And I thought that being someone with an invisible disability, I thought that I needed this person to help me with, everyday chores and such. But I decided to remove this person from my life instead. And I'm pleased to say that things almost immediately got better for me. And I do have the energy to be able to take care of myself and just do those everyday things that everyone needs to do. I've also lost some cognitive abilities that I used to have and I haven't regained, such as I realized when I was teaching, I can no longer write and talk at the same time. So I have to take pauses in my classes when I'm writing things on the board, because I can't multitask like I used to. Reading books is something that I can sort of do, but it takes a really long time. So I can't sit and read like I used to. I have to limit myself to roughly 5 to 10 pages at a time. So I can read, but it's just going to take me a long time to finish a book. I'm considering switching to audiobooks. I know that works well for a lot of people. And lastly, my short-term memory has been affected too. And I find that I'm much worse now at remembering just little things in my day-to-day life that I have done or haven't done, such as just yesterday, I thought, oh, I'm thirsty, I need a glass of water. And I poured myself a glass of water, like to find that there was one on the counter that I had poured like a couple minutes before, and I completely forgot about it. So those things I find are affected as well. But I don't want to just dwell on the negative. So I've experienced a lot of successes as well. So for example, I got through an entire year of teaching 4 courses, mostly in person, which seemed impossible at the start of September. I am performing again. As I said, it's still limited, but I'm still doing, I haven't had to turn down a gig that I really, really wanted to do. And I think that that's a big win. I'm currently working on driving for longer distances. I have a cottage that's approximately 2 hours away. And up until just a few weeks ago, I wasn't able to drive to it on my own. I would need someone else to drive me for at least half the way. But I've been working with my physiotherapist to build a system and a plan where I can tolerate it, and it's working. So that's a huge win for me. I've adopted a much healthier lifestyle. I've realized how important diet and exercise is for this kind of recovery. So I've completely revamped that part of my life. I've educated myself through the local and provincial brain injury associations, and I've found some wonderful resources and webinars there, and that's been really great. The things that have helped me the most would be, my number one thing that I would say is sleep. So that seems like a bit of a no-brainer, but I've gotten about 6 months ago, I got into the habit of going to bed an hour earlier than I normally do, and that's really, really helped me a lot, and I'm going to continue that practice. Cardio exercise is another huge one that is helping me significantly. Again, I'm working with my physiotherapist on this to build my tolerance and to keep increasing my heart rate when I exercise. But so I do 30 minutes a day, again, always adjusting my heart rate, and the payoff is immediate for me because the blood flow goes through the brain. You feel better instantly. So that's been a huge help to me. As I said, healthy diet. I've completely revamped my diet. The thing that helps me the most is tons of vegetables, especially vegetables like avocados, green leafy greens, that type of thing has been hugely helpful for me. And the last thing that I discovered not quite a year ago was CBD oil. And that was recommended to me from someone else that had a concussion, and I tried it at a very low dose, and I noticed the next morning, like almost immediately, I started feeling better. And so since then, I've adjusted my doses. I take about 50 milligrams a day. I take it right before bed. It helps me sleep, keeps me asleep, but it also, I believe, it helps me recover. It is an anti-inflammatory. And when I have a particularly difficult day, I'll take a little bit extra before I go to bed. And it seems to really, really help. And I feel so much better the next day. So those are kind of the four most important things. And then for treatments, it would be physiotherapy, massage therapy, cranial sacral therapy, osteopathy, and psychotherapy for mental health. I wanted to play a really quick slideshow. It's only a few slides, and it's only going to take a minute or two, but I found there's a community, an online community that I follow called, it's just called the Concussion Community. And they have really wonderful little illustrations and quotes that appear on Instagram. And I screenshot them with my phone when I find something that really particularly resonates with me. And I wanted to share a few of them with you tonight. So just give me 1 second, and I'm going to set that up and share it with you. Whoops, that is not the right site. 1 second. All right, let's try this again. There it is. All right. So this is just a short slideshow I put together, as I said, of some of the little comics and quotes that I found are really related. One of the biggest difficulties when you have an injury like this is it is impossible to explain it to other people, and people do not understand how it feels unless you have this kind of injury or have had it. It's impossible to put it into words. So this image really resonated with me because we look fine on the on the outside. We look like there's absolutely nothing wrong with us, but on the inside, it feels like every single part of your body is impacted. And I can't honestly say that I've had a single day since my injury where I felt normal, where I didn't feel something. So this is always me, at least to a certain extent. Sometimes it's more than others. Continuing on that vein of not being able to explain it to people is, I thought this graph was really useful, that the largest area is what I think, what I feel, but it's a much smaller area of what I can actually put into words. It's even smaller of what I actually end up saying to people. And then the little amount that someone that hasn't been through this can fully grasp is very, very small in comparison. And it's really difficult. And that really contributes to those feelings of isolation, which leads to greater depression. Also, the healing journey is, again, with most injuries, you assume it's a straight line that's just going to keep getting better and better. But a concussion doesn't work that way, and it's constant ups and downs. And even the things that, you know, aren't bothering me today, I could do those exact same things tomorrow, and I could experience a big setback. So it's that constantly changing trajectory and constantly changing limits. Mental health struggles, as I said, are pretty major, and this one really resonated with me. I went through a bad bout of depression in the fall when I started going back to teach, and was realizing how hard it was. And again, like, you feel like you can't really explain this stuff to other people, because other people will just say, oh, you know, just give it time, you know, you're doing all the right things, like, you'll be fine. And it's like, when you're in that state of such deep hopelessness, like, those comments aren't helpful. You don't hear them, they don't mean anything. So you tend to not talk about it or say anything, and yet it feels like there's this dark weight that is just eating away at you. And I think that this comic really illustrates that. Another thing is I have struggled a lot with acceptance and being okay with the fact that my limits have changed and I can't do what I used to do. So this quote really resonated with me, that it's not bad to miss what was. Of course, we're going to miss that, but it is bad to stop enjoying what's happening now. And this is something that really rings true for me. And I'm trying really hard to focus on, you know, the little bit of time I can spend with friends. Yes, it's less than I could before, but I can really enjoy that. And I can still get, you know, as much fun out of that as I ever could. Also, that kind of, you feel like you're fighting this alone. And this resonated with me as well, that I passed my hardest moments alone. Well, everyone believed I was fine. Knowing your limits is really important. So, and I am the type of person that has a really hard time saying no to opportunities, saying no to friends and family. So each time you say yes to others, make sure you're not saying no to yourself. And this is a constant juggling act. And as I said, my limits change every day. So it's judging that and trying to do what's best for you. And lastly, the importance of rest. Rest is something that is so important to me now, but it doesn't necessarily mean sleep. Yes, that's part of it, but it can also mean just like not doing work for a couple hours, or enjoying some solitude, or unplugging, not doing all the things that day that you plan to. So rest and being aware of when you need it is really, really important. So those are the slides I wanted to share. So just super quick, in conclusion, recovery is really hard and it takes a long time. It's not a straight line. It's a constant up and down. Recovery is multifaceted. There is no one thing that's going to make this better. You have to work really, really hard, and you have to do a lot of different things. So it's mental health, it's healthy eating, it's healthy sleeping, it's treatments for your physical injuries, such as massage and cranial treatments. It's physiotherapy to help you regain some of those cognitive abilities and to lessen sensitivities to certain things, such as, for me, movement is a huge sensitivity to me. So that's one of the things I'm working on. And lastly, physical health, cardio. So we're dealing with your brain here, and it affects your entire body. So in order to recover, you have to involve your entire body and every aspect of it into your recovery. So you have to focus on yourself and not feel bad about that. You have to put yourself first, no matter what. You have to fight for what you need to fight for, and find people who will advocate for you if you're not up for that fight yourself. Do not suffer in silence. If your friends and your family can't understand, then you have to find a supportive community with others, a network, whether it's an online community, an organization such as the Brain Injury Association of Waterloo-Wellington, or something similar. So thank you so much. And that concludes my talk.
Thanks so much, Kathryn.